So, what happens when you have a mind that is just brimming with creativity, but it just can't seem to focus on a single task? Well, today we're going to explore a really fascinating case study of a brilliant young writer, and we'll see exactly how a coach helped him overcome some of the big challenges of executive functioning.
All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we're going to meet Arav and really dive into his incredible creative world. Then, we'll look at this executive functioning gap that's kind of holding him back. After that, we'll check out the coach's CBT toolkit and see it in action, before we unpack something called the Impulsive Trap and explore how to build a more focused future.
So let's start with the person at the center of all this. Who is Arav? I mean, to really get the problem, you first have to appreciate the brilliant mind at the heart of this story.
This one quote from Arav himself, it just tells you so much, doesn't it? A blank page isn't scary to him, it's a playground. That's the perspective of a true creator, someone who sees just endless possibility where a lot of us might just see an empty space.
And his creative world is just vast. I mean, he's not just dabbling here and there. He is building entire worlds. From writing a whole book in poetry to diving deep into mythology and even designing a special doodling section for his readers. This stuff is a huge part of who he is.
But here's where we hit the central tension of the story. You have all this incredible creative energy, but it's living side by side with a pretty big challenge, the executive functioning gap. You know, his parents started to see a clear pattern. Arav would kick off these projects with so much enthusiasm, but he often really struggled to see them through to the end. He had a tough time with planning, got distracted super easily, and just found it hard to keep up that day-to-day grind needed to hit his big, ambitious goals. It's that classic gap, right, between having brilliant ideas and actually making them happen consistently. And this is where this term executive functioning comes into play. Just think of it like the CEO of your brain. It's the set of skills that's in charge of managing your time, keeping your attention locked in, and, actually getting stuff done. For Arav, his creative department was working overtime, but the CEO, well, the CEO was often out of the office. So, here's the million-dollar question. How do you build up the brain's CEO without sidelining the creative genius? The coach's answer was to use a really powerful framework. Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, or CBT for short. Now, I know CBT sounds all complex and clinical, but the idea at its core is actually pretty simple. It's all about understanding the connection between what we think, how we feel, and what we do. It helps us see how certain thought patterns can lead to behaviors that just don't serve us, and then it gives us the tools to change them. For Arav, the coach broke it down into 3 simple steps. First, you have to identify those automatic thoughts that pop into your head and derail your focus. This is boring. Second, you challenge that thought. Is it really boring, or is my brain just looking for something new and shiny? And then third, you actively swap out that old, distracting habit with a new, structured behavior.
Okay, so that's the theory, but how does it actually work in practice? Let's take a look at the real techniques that were used in a live coaching session. This is where the rubber really meets the road.
Here we go, a perfect example of shifting from passive to active. Arav was having a tough time with Hindi just by passively reading it. So the coach introduced a totally new technique, loudly saying the vowel sounds, the matras, while writing down each word. This was the secret sauce. It engaged more of his brain and turned this really difficult task into something that was way more manageable and even multi-sensory. And look, structure didn't have to be some super complicated thing. Instead of this vague idea of, I should study, the coach worked with Arav to create this simple visual plan. By blocking out specific times for specific tasks, it just took the guesswork out of it. It lowered that mental energy needed to decide what to do next, which made it so much easier to just start.
So during these sessions, the coach started to spot this core pattern that was just constantly derailing Arav's focus. And to help Arav recognize it himself, the coach gave it a name.
So what does it really look like when that super creative, super curious mind goes off track? Well, it's not just one thing, it's a lot of things.
Get this, in a single conversation with his coach, Arav was juggling 5 different things at once. He was searching for fonts, reading an article, doodling, thinking about school, and talking to a friend. Every single one of those is an impulse just pulling his attention in a totally different direction.
The coach's explanation was so direct and simple. He said, look, despite what we all think, our brains are just not built to do this effectively. What feels like multitasking is really just our brains switching tasks back and forth really, really fast.
and it's inefficient, and it just completely drains our mental batteries. And this is where the coach introduced a real game-changing concept. He gave the pattern a name, the Impulsive Trap. This is absolutely brilliant because it completely reframes the behavior. It's not a personal failing, it's a predictable trap. And once you can name it, you can start to see it coming. And the technique to escape this trap? It's remarkably simple. Step 1, just recognize that impulse when it hits. Step 2, use a physical anchor. The coach taught Arab to literally lean back and put his hands behind his head. This simple physical move interrupts the whole mental cycle. It creates a pause, and it allows his focus to just come back. Okay, so with these new tools in his pocket, the focus started to shift toward building long-term habits and systems, for a more focused future. The key strategies for his parents were all about empowerment, not control. A visible planner replaced the nagging. Asking collaborative questions like, "What part went well today?" replaced the policing. And for his creative work, the goal shifted from that impossible standard of perfection to the much more achievable goals of consistency and, most importantly, completion. And this, right here, this is really the heart of the whole approach. The goal was never to tame Arav's incredible imagination or, make him less creative. Not at all. It was to build a support structure, a scaffold, around that creativity so his amazing ideas could finally be built into something real, something complete.
Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Arav's story is such a powerful case study, but the central question really applies to all of us, right? Whether we're parents, or teachers, or managers, or even just trying to manage ourselves. How do we build the structures we need to be effective without losing that creative spark that makes our work and our lives so meaningful?